Hello there, welcome back once again to Retro Anime Realm, where today we shall be continuing with the Great Gundam UC Rewatch, covering episodes 17 to 26 of Mobile Suit Gundam Double Zeta. So we're covering 9 episodes here. The first topic I shall talk about is the arrival of LPO Peru. Now, she is a very well-known character when it comes to Mobile Suit Gundam Double Zeta. She's one of the characters most people remember. And so she's finally appeared when it comes to all this. And my opinion on her as a character is she's very, very energetic, very lively, brings more of that to Double Zeta, more than it already had anyway. At least it's got a little bit more serious up to this point. And she seems to be like this powerful new type that Glemmy has under his control. He's kind of using to combat Judo and the Double Zeta Gundam. But I think because of Judo being like a strong new type, that she seems to be kind of like attracted to Judo and like always wants him to be her friend and all that kind of stuff. So we've got like her appear now and all that going on, which is like an interesting dynamic between the two of them. She kind of becomes like another sister to Judo in a way, like another little sister. And obviously like Judo's still like trying his best to rescue Lena from the clutches of Zeon. So yeah, I think that LPO Peru is definitely someone who can help him do that, because she seems to have now, by where we are now in the story, she seems to have joined Judo and his gang on a permanent basis, which is rather cool. But she always seems to kind of, at the moment, she kind of seems to be leading like the gang into trouble and all kinds of stuff, and she seems to be getting them into messes quite regularly. But there we go. And as well as that, what's been happening with Haman Khan? She as well has been attracted to Judo, but in another way entirely. I think this is down to the fact that, yeah, I think what makes her attracted to Judos is like new type powers again, but like I said, in a different way this time. When she meets Judo for the second time aboard her ship, she tries like converting Judo to work for her instead. And what's really interesting is that during this exchange, she actually uses the same wording that Camille used to her when they had that new type melding of minds back in the Zeta Gundam, which I found really interesting. So we're getting quite a lot of like development and kind of insight into her character at the moment, which is rather cool. Which makes me think that maybe she did, back when that happened with Camille, maybe she did kind of agree with what was happening there, and she understood what was going on, but because of the way Haman Khan is, imagine back then she wasn't going to let Camille, do that. She wanted that to happen on her own terms, like she's trying to do now with Judo. So I think she understood like the meaning of like what Camille said of new types having this understanding, but she wanted to do it on her terms, and because she's quite a stubborn person, and I believe that's why she's saying all this to Judo this time. So that's kind of quite fascinating when it comes to her, and we'll get lots more development when it comes to Haman Khan in the next couple of episodes, which is really, really interesting. So stay tuned for that. As well as this, we've got kind of more happening when it comes to like the rest of the Gundam team. I think like one thing I find cool about Gundam Double Zeta so far is that like a lot of the extra cast around Judo are used really, really well when it comes to like the rest of his gang. I think they're used in such a good way. And so we have more of them piloting mobile suits now. When it comes to this point, we actually have Beecher piloting the Yakushiki, which is really interesting, that he actually got Charles' suit. When, it goes without saying that Beecher and Mondo have had kind of a turbulent time on board the Argama so far, and with Bright and with the others, that's for sure. So it's kind of interesting that he got that mobile suit. He didn't really have any piloting experience at all before then. I think the only mention of it you get is that he said he'd been like training on the simulator on boards like the Endra. Yeah, the Endra was the ship they're on, wasn't it? Yeah, they're using the simulator on board the Endra, and that's why they've kind of got used to piloting mobile suits now, and why he can suddenly pilot one. Funnily enough, this is kind of the same training I remember that Far had back in Zeta Gundam, and she wasn't really a good pilot at all. But from what we've seen so far, Beecher seems to be like a better skilled pilot than she was anyhow, so there we go. But he is using a much better mobile suit than Yakushiki, that's for sure. We also had the return of Wong Lee. It was kind of nice to see his character again, or was it? A very like temperamental guy, as you know, from back in Zeta Gundam. And he doesn't really seem to agree with Judo and the rest of his friends, like working aboard the Argama. He seems to think that Judo's only interest is saving his sister. I think if you'd have to be around Wong Lee, then I think we'd all agree that he is a terrible person. But I do kind of like him as a character. There is something. I don't want to say he adds a little bit of comic relief. He isn't really that character. You laugh at him, but not really in that way. But yeah, I think he is I think he's a good character. He's a fun character, I think. So it's good to see him again. And Judo kind of beat him up really bad instead of like what he did in the last series, him beating up Camille. I'm sure Camille would be very happy about that. Another thing we have here, when it came to kind of, what episodes is it? I think it was about 21 and 22. We had the episodes of Cecilia, like Torres' friend. Mentioning these episodes, I think these episodes are where the series really start to turn, like it came to building a more serious tone. Because we hadn't really seen something like that happen so far in Gundam Double Zeta when it comes to that kind of like a big character death like that. I know she wasn't like a big character, but she had like a very impactful death. We hadn't really seen that kind of seriousness with Gundam Double Zeta so far. So I think like these episodes, I think, were the turning point when it comes to the more serious tone with the show. I think that much is for sure. Yeah, I think at that point you really see with Judo especially that he realises how serious what's happening is. I think up until that point, I think Judo and the rest had kind of been swept along by all of this. And I don't think Judo had really realised that he'd got himself involved with such a conflict and was now involved with something quite large until that happened. And I think Judo realised the seriousness of that situation. I feel bad for Torres that he had kind of like a quite strong relationship with Cecilia, but he doesn't even know about Cecilia's death or at all of what happens there. I'm sure we'll find out at some point, but yeah, I feel quite sorry for him. But I think this was definitely kind of like a turning point when it came to the series. And just to kind of signify that more, in the same episode, you also had like the death of Goton also, and he's been around for like all the way up until that point in the series. And so with Cecilia's death and her wiping out Goton also, like him and his cronies are now gone from the show, and those lot again were kind of indicative of the more comedic side of the series. Goton, always came up with these schemes to try and defeat the Argama and destroy the Double Zeta. It never really happens for him. I think he was more a competent character than Choa and what Mashima was trying to do, that's for sure. He was using more like kind of this kind of tactics we've seen from some of the villains in the previous series. He didn't care about what people got in his way. He wasn't really as kind as someone like Mashima was, really. And he was trying to achieve his goals by any means necessary, which I think is what we're kind of more accustomed to as an audience when it comes to like a villain in Gundam shows. But yeah, he's definitely still quite goofy, that's for sure. And again, him going signifies like the change in tone. Definitely. And as well as all that, in the last couple of episodes, again with some more development for Haman Khan, like I said, we've seen a bit more of Lemmy Toto. It's kind of weird to me, even though I probably covered this in the last episode of these Rewatch videos I'm doing, that like Lemmy seemed to have become quite powerful within Zeon quite fast. Like at the beginning of the show, he's kind of just some like ordinary soldier, and then he ended up like captaining his own ship. I know he's kind of very well respected by Haman Khan, it seemed, like it was said at like the start of the show. And now we have this statement by Haman Khan that she's kind of concerned about Lemmy, that he's getting a bit too much power maybe, and that she feels that he's trying to do something behind her back. We don't quite know what this is, but it's definitely interesting, that's for sure. And I'll have more information when it comes to this as we continue on through the series. And like last but not least, like the where the show's got up to now, we've had like our heroes like arrive in Africa. Like the Gundam team and the Argonath kind of went their separate ways for the moment because they're going to join up in a later attack on Dakar, which has now seemingly been infiltrated by Haman and Zeon. You know, Dakar being where the Earth Federation headquarters are, so that's kind of been infiltrated by the Zeon forces now. And so the AU and Karaba are going to try and take it back. And we have like the Gundam team for the last couple of episodes kind of traversing through some parts of Africa and like encountering some people along their way. These episodes are kind of like, I don't want to call them filler episodes, to be honest. There is like a little bit of information to them, but I'm not going to really cover them in this rewatch segment because I don't think there's really much going on to really talk about, to be quite honest. They're quite good and get some kind of thoughts and insight on what's going on when it comes to more ordinary people when it comes to this conflict, but I don't think there's kind of much for me to talk about when it comes to all this. It's nice to see some of like the older suits from Mobile Suit Gundam appear and some modified versions of them, but anyway, I think that's kind of all I want to say about that and about these episodes, really. I've really been enjoying this last lot of episodes of Gundam Double Zeta. Like I said, I wasn't too keen on these last few episodes because the plot doesn't really move too much. As I said, they're sort of kind of like filler episodes in a way, but I have been enjoying it a lot more now. I was enjoying it before, but it's nice that it's reached a more serious tone. So yeah, I'll be back once again soon with like the next segment of this rewatch, and yeah, see you then.